Hello and welcome back to the Dicebreaker podcast. This is episode 44. All the fours, it's 44.
That is the bingo call, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah.
I mean, I
I'm pretty
improv
sure
it,
it
but...
is. It's also the UK dialing code if you're abroad. Plus double 4, knock off the O from the start of the number, start dialing, Bob's your uncle.
I always I'm terrible with dialing codes, particularly single-digit ones, because are you meant to leave all the O's in? Are you meant to take them off? So I find it's best that I just never call anyone or pick up the phone or communicate at all. Yeah,
Spoken like a true millennial.
It's worked out really well for me so far. I only communicate via TikTok.
That's more of a Gen Z sort of thing, isn't it?
Wow, thanks, Mian.
Dab once for yes, dab twice for no.
What? I don't even have a TikTok account. So like, if you're doing a race on who's the least cool, I think I'm winning in that account right now.
Fair enough.
Anyway, we are here, back, as always, to talk about board games and tabletop RPGs. I am Matt Jarvis. I'm joined, once again, by two of the team, joined by Johnny Chiodini. How are you doing today, Johnny?
I am all right, thank you very much. I had a bracing morning. I took out the recycling.
Ooh.
I put a new bin liner in the bin. It's all go here. Woof.
Woof indeed.
That's all I got. That's literally all I got.
All right, wonderful. Excellent. Mian, how are your bins?
How are my bins? They're pretty good now. I threw out some oil the other day. That's fun.
Oh.
Yeah, throwing out oil is not a pleasant experience.
Can't put it down the drain.
No, please don't do that. Never do that. And never put coffee grounds down the drain either.
Oh, I'm guilty of that one.
Yeah, you're going to be having problems with your plumbing if you're doing that. But, yeah, no, you just... it's not just the throwing away, it's also the cleaning of the container afterwards. Like, oil just... It really doesn't want to go away. So, yeah, that's my bin news. That's what we come here for, right? To talk about bins.
But that's what people go on TikTok for, right? We're channeling... They go on there to learn little hacks about...
life
how
hacks.
to clean this, or like here's how to scoop out an avocado using like a piece of paper and like a staple.
Yep.
And, it's that's what's replaced like Lifehacker and all of that. It's just endless TikToks of how to improve your life that you instantly forget once you move on.
It's like how brands like Lad Bible, that used to be about like, going out and lad culture, they're now just like videos being like, oh look, this guy taught his daughter to blah blah blah, because they've all grown up and started having kids. It's very funny.
Oh, the circle of life.
Yes, I believe that's what Elton John was getting at.
That
that bridge that's all about the lads and how they don't go out drinking with Susie no more.
Yeah, you should have seen Zuzu in his drinking days. He was.
Do you mean
Zazu? Sorry, Zazu.
Oh, he'd answer by anything after 2 pints. He'd go by Zazzle, Zazzalicious, anything.
All right, let's chat about what we've been playing, shall we?
Yeah.
let's crawl our way towards
Yep.
a semblance of a podcast.
Like a lad after a particularly rough night out. Let's crawl our way to talking about board games.
Yep.
All right, Mian. Let's kick off with you. What have you been playing this week?
What have I been playing? I've been playing. Played a bit of Seven Wonders on the old Board Game Arena, which is a browser version of like various digital games. They got a decent collection on there. One of my friends is testing out like a trial of the subscription service, and if you've got one of those, you can invite your friends to play with you without them having to have a paid subscription. So that was good. I've never played Seven Wonders before. I know.
Actually, I haven't either.
Yeah, well, maybe that's what's your video series? How have you not played? Or
our video series, please.
Yeah.
Sorry, our video series.
It's called You've Never Played, and it is actually on the list because I've never played Seven. I've played Seven Wonders Duel, but never the.
Oh, okay, that was going to be my question. Mian,
Yeah.
had you played Duel, or did you just avoided Seven Wonders completely?
Avoided is a strong
Okay,
word.
you
Like,
hadn't
I've
encountered
not...
Seven Wonders.
Yeah, no. I've just not gotten around to playing it before. Like, it's not been one that my friends have had or we've been particularly interested in playing. I've got nothing against it, but they were like, oh, it's really easy to play on Board Game Arena because it just sets out for you, and then it works out your point totals as well, which is always nice because I'm not very good with maths. So we played it about 2 times, and I did surprisingly well considering I didn't really know what I was doing for like the first go around, because it's like a little bit confusing in some of the areas where, like, on its surface it's very simple, you're just drafting cards, but like some of the cards do odd things with, like, the science cards, for example. They build up to one another, and the fighting cards kind of operate in their own way as well. So I was winging it a little bit, but by the second go round I kind of figured out things a bit more, and I actually did worse somehow, but I think maybe that's because everyone else also figured things out. But no, it was enjoyable. I'd like to play it in person because it's just not the same.
I'd play Monopoly in person right now, to be fair.
Yeah.
I'd lap that up. I'd even play like one of the nonsensical versions where the properties aren't properties, they're just references to a show.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you've landed on Ron Swanson's desk. Yes, I'll buy that. I've already got his moustache. Sorry, carry on.
That's fine. I liked it. Yeah, we played some of that, and we'll probably play some more games on Board Game Arena at some point. I saw they had quite a nice collection on there, including Cult Express.
It works really well on Board Game Arena.
Yeah, I imagine.
It's very nice. I mean, that's the thing about it over, say, something like Tabletop Simulator, is that it has a slightly narrower selection of games, but the scripts are really good. So, like, it just handles itself.
Yeah, you're not always guaranteed to find a good script on TTS, whereas
Indeed.
like Board Game Arena ones are pretty good. So we played that. I played some of Overboss. Am I allowed to talk about that much, Jarvis?
Yeah, there's no embargo. Yeah.
Okay. It's a game that's coming out this month. It was on Kickstarter last year, and it's a spin-off, I'd call it, to the Boss Monster series of games.
Okay.
So they're the card games where you build your own sort of dungeon using different cards which represent the rooms, and the aim of the game is to kind of build the best sort of scoring dungeon, but also kill the heroes coming in before they get to your lair and can attack you. So I have played the original Boss Monster before, but this Overboss is quite a different game. It doesn't have the heroes aren't in it. Your goal isn't really to murder this time. It's more to have the potential to murder. So you build overworlds. It's like very retro video game inspired. Think like Link to the Past or that kind of era. It looks really nice, actually. The components feel really good. Like there's loads of tiles in the game, and they feel really solid and just good to hold. The inlay is a bit weird. I'm not a fan of it. It seems like there's like gaps where things should go, but they don't go.
Do you think that might be for expansions?
Maybe.
Is it that kind of gap, or is it just this kind of, they've taken a generic inlay and plonked it in?
Maybe. There was a gap that we've kind of used to hold bits that we aren't using during the game. But that could be used for an expansion. But there are also just gaps in the inlay where you're like, nothing's going to go in there. It's just very odd. But yeah, in the game you use tiles to build your overworld, and the tiles, it's a bit like a roll and write. I think that's the kind of closest I can feel to describe it, in the sense that you draft tiles, so there is a random element to it in terms of there's only 4 tiles available at one time, but you can choose between those 4, and then depending on what tiles you use in your sort of overworld, you'll score points from those tiles, like collectively. So the aim of the game is to score the most points. So it's really it's actually quite a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. It's very straightforward. We played it last night, and both my flatmate and I weren't really in the mood for like learning anything particularly new. But then when I got around to doing it, it was very easy to both learn it myself and explain. And I'm looking forward to playing it again because we played it with the most like basic form. Like there are advanced ways of playing it, and the basic form was fun, but I can see it sort of getting more depth with the more advanced tiles that you use. There are characters that you can play as well that kind of alter the way you score points, and there are different modes. There's even a solo mode included, which I might give a go. So I may be doing a review on this, so if you want to hear more thoughts on Overboss, you can keep an eye out for that.
Is it similar at all to King Domino, if you've played King Domino?
I've not played King Domino.
Delicious King Domino.
Because that has like a similar thing to what it sounds like you're describing in terms of drafting tiles, but it doesn't have those character abilities. Because I love Queen Domino, and I really like the idea of Overboss. So I'm really intrigued by this, and it's good to hear that you've had a good positive first impression, because Boss Monster I feel gets a long way on its theme, and then it's kind of like, okay, this is like a fun idea, but after a few games it was kind of like, move on.
I think the real test of this one is going to be, is it going to be interesting after like several more playthroughs? Because initially, like, it didn't take us long to get our heads around it, and we were using strategies, and during our playthrough at one point I was convinced that I had lost, because there's these little things you can get called portals that allow you to move things around on your overworld. Because the way you've also got these tokens which are monsters, and then depending on how you pair monsters with the different tiles, you can score points that way, but you can also score points with how they're arranged on the overworld as a whole. So I didn't manage to get any of those portals, whereas my opponent got 2. So I was kind of sat there, a bit butthurt. But it turns out I won the game because of the way I'd placed the monsters in relation to each other, not necessarily matching them with their tiles. Because overall, that doesn't get you that many points compared to arranging them on the board. And because you're taking portal tokens instead of monsters, you're getting less opportunity to do that. So even there, like, there's some additional depth alongside the tiles you choose and how they work together. So I think we're definitely going to obviously give the advanced tiles and modes a go and see how they work. But I enjoyed it so far. Like, the theme is fun, like the components look really nice. The rulebook is really large, and the print's really large as well, which I really appreciate, because it just makes it like really easy to find, the bits that you need, and like it's just, I like that. I like having a larger book with fewer pages rather than a smaller one with more pages. So so far impressions are positive.
Great. It sounds really interesting. The monsters in particular, that sounds different to something like Queen Domino or King Domino. So I'm really, really intrigued by this. Cool.
And we played Root, didn't we, Matt?
We did, yes.
Go on, get it over with. Go on.
I won.
Go on.
We played on the new winter map, which is, I think it was originally one of the physical expansions, maybe the River Folk.
The winter map was just on the flip side of the base game.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, the original game's board is, you've got the sort of lovely autumnal one, and then you flip it,
of course.
And you got the winter one where you have to discover what clearings are, to which sort of faction they belong.
Yeah, you're completely right. God, wow, it's been so long since I played physical Root.
I know.
But yeah, so the winter map came out this week for the app, which we've been playing.
Update, so.
And it's like the physical version. It's completely randomized. So the clearings are randomized, and it's a different layout of paths compared to the autumn map, which I won as the vagabond, but I will say that I don't love the randomized clearings, because we ended up with a clump of rabbit clearings in one corner, a clump of fox clearings in the other, and then there was it happened to be that the 4 spaces where the ruins token starts, which the vagabond can explore to get items, which are needed to complete quests and get points, they happened to be a fox, a rabbit, and a mouse. So I spent the entire game essentially on those 4 spaces, because I could just pick up stuff, hop across, complete a quest, or get a ruins token, hop across, do another quest, and I won, but it felt quite hollow, and I felt quite bad at some point.
I mean, also you will have, with the clearings clumped up like that, it would have been a pretty open game for someone to just play a Dominion card.
So I was lucky enough to get the Rabbit Dominion card, which allows someone to win if they hold 3 rabbit clearings. And the Marquis de Cat happened to start in the clump of rabbit clearings. So if they had drawn that card, they would have just won.
Yeah.
Because there's no... It would have been really difficult to fight our way there in a round and manage to do it. So I feel... that was kind of a shame. Because we've typically played with the set clearings, and I think that feels a lot more... deliberate and balanced.
Yeah, that's the superior way of playing. Like, I wasn't too affected by it. I played the Eerie. We did this random, so we just did a randomly selected faction. And it wasn't too bad, because I managed to get cards that kind of worked with the situation for the most part, although there were some cards that I just never used because, for example, the rabbit clearings were all the way in the other corner where I started, so they were kind of useless, because I couldn't use them to build or fight in or anything. So they kind of sat in my hand until eventually I made my way up there. And I was the only one. I felt like I was the only player who was really making any huge effort to stop Matt towards the end, because I was just like punching you or your vagabond character. But even then, it did nothing, because you just kept repairing your stuff straight
I had so
afterwards.
many items from picking up the ruins very early on that by the time I was getting attacked, I had so much to damage and still be able to do things, and I happened to start as the Tinkerer, so I could repair things anyway, that I did kind of just snowball into an unstoppable force. But I still...
That's close.
Yeah, I think... But it shows that particular group we've been playing with, we've got to the point where, and I think it's best with Root, where everyone's at a similar level of experience, because if someone doesn't know how they all interact and the best way to go with a particular strategy for a particular faction, that can make it really hard as a beginner. But we've typically been all within kind of 5 to 10 points or so, and this time with the randomized clearings there was a much bigger kind of spread, and I think that was solely down to just the luck of where everything started. So
the player controlling the Woodland Alliance had a particularly difficult time, because they were trying to get to clearings to rebel, because obviously they can only have a camp in a limited amount of clearings, and they just couldn't get to the clearing they needed to rebel in. So definitely prefer the base sort of set map to the winter one, but it looked nice.
Yeah, I will say that app continues to be fantastic in terms of its
works
presentation and making what is quite a complex game relatively easy to understand. It's a really standout app,
especially with like moving from clearing to clearing. That's not always clear when you need to give someone a card or not. And I think just having that automated is really nice. All right, Mian, is that everything you've been playing?
It is indeed.
All right, we will move on over to you, Johnny. What have you been playing recently?
Well, I mean, Blaze in the Dark, Dungeons and Dragons, Deadlands, the usuals. But also, I have actually played some King Domino recently, which is just good, clean fun. We actually played it for an episode of You've Never Played. And it's super chill, and I really like it. But apart from that, a lot of my sort of tabletop stuff has just been prepping to play games. I've been painting my frogs for Cosmic Frog, and getting very excited about a time when I'll be able to play that. prepping Blood Bowl miniatures for a league. I am in the process of setting up with some friends. Just a lot of sort of like wintering out, waiting for the return of face-to-face stuff. But also, a friend introduced me to No More Jockeys, the folk game. It's a game that was invented by a few people, including Alex Horn, who invented like Taskmaster. So it's actually a TV series, or it's on YouTube, and it's just a game where you have to name a famous person, or a person, fictional or real, alive or dead, and then you rule out a category to which that person applies. So you could say Frankie Dettori, No More Jockeys, and then someone has to come up with a person, and then add their own category. So in the end, you have to remember a whole bunch of things, and you've got 3 challenges to say, like, I'm going to challenge you on that because, I believe that blah 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 was a jockey, and if the challenge is verified, then they're out. And it's just one of those really infectious, lovely folk games that sort of spring out of seemingly nowhere and are just like endlessly captivating. So to answer the question, I've not really been playing much, but I've been thinking about games a lot because I find folk games absolutely fascinating. Like one of my favourite ones is from like an old article on Eurogamer, where like I think it was in the 30s, it was just a massive surplus of upright pianos. So as part of Village Fates, they used to have box races where they had 2 teams, 2 little boxes with sort of little like letter boxes in them, 2 upright pianos and sledgehammers. And the goal was to be the first team to post the entirety of a piano through a box, like through a letterbox into a box. And that was just a game that people like commonly played. So we're like, what are we going to do with all these pianos? Let's smash them up and make it a race.
That's true excess.
Isn't it? It's just like I'd love nothing more than an upright piano in the corner. But no, there was a surplus. They had to thin out their numbers like they were deer in Richmond Park. But yeah, I just like
pianos just rolling around Richmond Park.
Oh god, they were savage, just catching children in the lids and just clonk clonk clonk.
Oh, like the one in Mario 64.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, I think it's just, this is purely driven by nostalgia for society being sort of normal. But I'm just remembering all of the fun games we used to play. Like when I worked at ITN a long time ago now, we had a game called Tea Toss where we'd offer to make a round of teas, and then we just stand in the kitchen just trying to throw the tea bags in. It was a 2-part game because you try and throw the tea bags in the mugs, and then you try and ping the wet tea bags into the bin with a spoon. So I guess basically I've been dossing is what I'm trying to say. What have you been playing, Matt?
I've actually played quite a lot for once.
Hey.
Helped by the fact that I wasn't on the podcast last week. But so we played Scythe, which me and probably spoke about last week.
I did, yes.
I've cooled off on Scythe, I will say.
Oh.
I still like it. I still think it's a good strategy game, but I think playing something like Root has really embedded that's the kind of strategy I really, really enjoy.
Yeah, I hate to say this, but I'm sorry, Johnny, but I'm kind of starting to get into Matt's corner with this.
That's fine. I love both of those games. I'm not bothered. Yeah. It's just I can't believe that the worm is finally turning.
I don't know whether it's because we've been playing more Root and Scythe recently, but I think in some ways Root there's less to keep track of, but there's more, like each element has more to it. That makes sense. So
yeah,
I like both. I'd be up for playing both. I kind of see where Matt's coming from.
Yeah, I wouldn't turn down Scythe. Like I say, I still like it, but I think it's just embedded in me that it is quite. It lacks the flavour that I really enjoy from Root, where a lot of the interest is from those interactions between the different factions. Whereas Scythe, you're in your own corner for most of it, just trying to get those stars for.
Yeah.
And most of it isn't conflict, because conflict has kind of,
massive
increasing losses. As you go on.
Yeah.
So we've played Soulbound. Obviously, we continue to play Soulbound as part of Dungeon Breaker Season Break.
Yes.
That game that's a it's a fun RPG. That system's pretty solid. It's
fine.
A little wordy, but for Warhammer, it's not unexpectedly wordy, I suppose.
Yeah. It is actually it's so true to Age of Sigmar that I actually kind of respect it. It's slightly clunky, but you're like, oh yeah, no, this is exactly how Age of Sigmar works. Well, not exactly, but it's a very authentically Warhammer game, and for that it should be applauded.
I think there's
sarcastically or not.
I think there's just more work involved in the setting up than there is necessarily in the playing of it. Like, once you've got a good idea of what your character can and can't do, then like things are a lot more straightforward. It's just getting to that point takes a lot more than I'd like.
I think that's true of a lot of role-playing games, though. I mean, Shadowrun, the first time you make a character in that game, it can take days. No, I'm not even kidding. It's involved. But you know, again, once you're out in the world and you're like, here are the things my character can do. Here is how I do those things, and I have a basic understanding of how the world can hurt me. Then you're away.
Yeah, so I think the system itself is nice and neat, but I think a lot of it just comes down to, like I was saying, almost the rule book. It just needs to have a more...
Needs to be better organised.
Yeah, just a more accessible kind of lead into, here's how you make a character. Because instead, there's a lot of side notes where it's like, okay, turn to this page to understand how metal works. Turn to this page to understand how toughness works. And you have to turn to those pages to then work out how to calculate those. Because when they're introduced at the character creation level, they're just kind of mentioned and not really spelt out enough. And the archetypes that are kind of pre-generated, I guess, like concepts of a character, they're really good to get you in there, but it doesn't do enough to explain exactly what any of that does, and it doesn't hold your hand enough, I think, as a new player. And maybe that's because we're using the core rulebook rather than the beginner set, because I think there's a starter set out there.
Sure.
But I think once you're rolling, it's pretty straightforward. I don't think it's my favorite system in the world. The whole here's what you need to roll and here's how many you need. But it works. You know, you're just rolling d6s. It's not super complicated to work out what you need to roll. Yeah. But the first adding up and filling out that character sheet can be quite a lot to wrap your head around. Where it's like, okay, well, this is my level of this, and this compares to this, and that means I'm good at this. But then it's like your melee and your ballistics are measured in good, average, poor, but then your other traits are measured in numbers. Yeah. And then you've got toughness, but also wounds. So there's just a lot of kind of things that overcomplicate. There's a lot when you strip it down. It's simple, but yeah. I have played... I'm kind of rattling through these because, like I say, I've played quite a lot. I played the demo of Micro Macro Crime City.
Incredible.
Which I think we mentioned a couple of podcasts back. It's basically Where's Wally, but as Where's Wally meets Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, which is a pitch that I am invested in. And there's a free demo you can play online, because the physical edition of the game is currently sold out. I think it's being reprinted this month, February. So it is a game where you have a large map, and it looks like a Where's Wally photo, or if anybody's played the mobile game Hidden Figures, I think it's like black and white, little people walking around a city, buildings, interesting things happening. But you are then given a deck of cards to solve a specific mystery. So it's like, okay, somebody was shot in this square. Who did it? But it will take you through the steps of, okay, find the body. That's your first task. You find the body, you turn to the next card. It's like, okay, where were they before they were shot? And it's like, okay, they were at the chip stand.
Okay, right.
Because you can follow.
To look for them. Okay.
Yeah, because the way the map works is the same person will appear multiple times. So it's like multiple time periods stamped over each other.
So
you can follow them back across the map. So it's like, oh, okay, they were at the chip stand before they were shot in the square. And it's like, okay, who shot them? And you look around them as they're followed. It's like, okay, this person was following them. It's like, why were they killed? Trace it back further, and so on. And it's really, it's not really a game. It's more of an activity. But they turn it into it's as much of a game as something like Consulting Detective is.
Yeah.
Because it does put that structure in place.
It feels like you're the deputy and the detective is doing the big reveal and talking you through it and being like, I can almost picture Daniel Craig at Knives Out being like, but where was he before he was a body? It's like, oh, my God, he was at the chip stand.
Yeah.
That sounds brilliant. Sounds so satisfying.
There's a free demo, and that that convinced me enough where I'm now desperately trying to hunt down a copy of this.
I'm writing this down.
I'm imagining that the expansions are going to be very straightforward, and the fact they'll just be additional maps.
Well, you say that, so I don't know how many cases are included in the original box, but they have put out like DLC essentially that uses the same map, but I guess they've just built in other cases already. So you can go on the website and they're just free to kind of browse through.
Yeah.
And they suggest even kind of framing the map. It's large. I think it's bigger than poster size, I think. Wow. But they suggest framing it, putting it on a wall, and almost playing it as like a, if you're passing one day, like passing on the way to do something, you can just stop for a couple of minutes and try and work one out quickly. It's just, it's something
great.
That is original
Johnny's
enough that really excited me. So it's been all I've been thinking about recently.
That's amazing.
Like I say, there is a free demo, so you can go and check it out. And I won't spoil any more of it. But it's a decent. It lasts about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, depending on how long it takes you. But that was enough to just tip me over the edge and be like, "This is a fantastic idea. How has no one done Where's Wally but crime scene investigation before?"
Yeah.
So
why has Wally been murdered?
Yeah. I played Sakura Arms, which is a head-to-head card game battler. It was fine. The main thing I want to dive into here is I played it on Tabletopia because that's where the demo was. Because I was playing around with Tabletopia and Board Game Arena over the weekend. I also played a bit of Red 7 and another card game. Full disclosure, we were given kind of gold access for a while by the Tabletopia people to kind of check it out. And I will say, I don't love it. It works fine enough until you want to do anything that's too specific. So we were playing a game that involved a deck of cards. And at one point we needed to split the deck, then shuffle cards into each separate thing and then put them back on top of each other.
Yeah.
But you can't split a deck easily enough. The controls are just quite imprecise and fiddly for trying to stack cards into like a single object of a deck. So it just took way longer than it needed to. And then at one point we had to search through the deck for a specific card, which is a function that Tabletopia just does not have from what I can tell. And Tabletop Simulator is not perfect, but I think it gets by on the fact that there is so much in it. It's so flexible that you can basically do anything you want, and it comes down to the strength of the script or the strength of the mod. But Tabletopia, I just felt was missing a lot of the functionality I really needed, and it just became frustrating at points. So yeah, I'm kind of intrigued to check it out. It might be good for certain games because there are elements of it that I did like. Versus something like Board Game Arena, I think the presentation is a bit flashier. Board Game Arena is very
basic. Yeah.
Yeah, the scripts work, but it feels like a website that was designed in 2002 and then frozen in time. But we played Red 7 on that, and it was nice to just have it do the like, hey, you can't do that because you'll lose if you do that, or that's an illegal play.
Yeah.
Which I think is really nice when you're trying to teach something. But yeah, it was interesting to try out both properly. It wasn't necessarily won over. I did end up getting a subscription to Board Game Arena because there are things on there that aren't on Tabletop Simulator, and they're kind of officially sanctioned and all of that.
Which is nice.
Yeah. And that's kind of it. I then played a bit of Monster of the Week over the weekend. We wrapped up our kind of wizard mystery that was going on. That was very good, and we are now going to start on a different RPG at some point. My regular group. We fell off for about 5 months due to various personal reasons and events, but we're now back on the train. Monster of the Week is still great. It's a great system powered by the Apocalypse, but we'll probably switch to a different system once we figure out what it is. All right, shall we move on to news?
Yes, please. Yeah.
All right, we have one that's quite an exciting one for Dicebreaker specifically. Alex Meehan,
hello.
Tell us about Merchants of Magic.
Oh, I'm in the chopper. We're flying over the Settlewatch world, which is scary. But I'm okay. I'm in the chopper. Yeah, there's a new Set a Watch game called Merchant of Magic. But it's not a co-op game, it's a roll and write, which is very odd but exciting. Yeah, so in the game you're playing as merchants who are selling their wares to the adventurers of the watch. So basically the people you play in the original Set Watch. So you roll a set of 4 polyhedral dice, and then you choose 2 of those results to craft some new items or do research into a new spell, and then once you've done those things you can stock your shop with those new items or spells, and the wandering adventurers will be looking for specific items and spells they want to buy, and if you can stock your shop with those quick enough, then they will pay you some monies for them. However, if you take too long, the heroes will go to an opponent's shop instead. So you've got to be quick. You can also earn potions that can help you change your future dice results. So, yeah, this is designed by Clarence Simpson, who hasn't done any of the previous Set a Watch games. It's actually their debut tabletop title. I think they've done more work on video games. But I don't think there's going to be a Kickstarter for it. I think it's just being released later this year. And as far as I could tell, it will be released at a retail price of $20.
Guess it.
So around £15. Which is reasonable for a roll and write.
Yep, yeah. Give,
yeah.
Please. Mine. Want.
There you go. Yeah, so it seems they're expanding the Set a Watch universe.
Yeah, it chimes in really nicely with Swords of the Coin, because a big part of that is that there's now a merchant you can go to and get the items you desperately need.
Yeah.
So, you can not only make some coin, you can feel like you've just helped some adventurers survive the night when inevitably a fire drake pops up in first position. The worm starts to turn.
Yeah, so keep an eye out for that. Yeah, it's interesting that they're expanding the lore of Set a Watch and creating new games in that universe.
It's been a while since I played Set a Watch, but in terms of the universe, it's not just generic fantasy, right? It has a touch of. It's obviously still fantasy based, but I remember it having a touch of something a bit more distinct, at least.
Yeah, it's kind of got its own mythos about the unhallowed and how they're all dreadful and they have acolytes in service to them, and because the original premise is that you've already won, the big evil has been defeated, but now you're kind of returning from campaign. You've just got to survive that little bit longer as they try to summon unhallowed to get their revenge and kind of start their own fight back. So tonally, I really like it. It's not the apocalyptic, if we don't do this now, the West will fall sort of, Lord of the Rings scale thing. It's what comes after, which I quite like. It makes it feel sort of intimate, especially when you consider it's 3 people sort of with their backs to a blazing fire trying to survive while another one has a nap.
Screw that other one.
But no, they're doing important things. They need to heal up.
Yeah.
And possibly scout ahead or check the map. Or heal if they've rolled a 6.
We don't know anything about the box yet, do we? Because that was also one of the things about Set a Watch, where it folded out into this kind of lovely, the box is the board. And I feel like that might be something that a roll and write could do, but I'd be intrigued.
Don't take my word on the lack of Kickstarter, because I don't know that 100%, but you can pre-order it from Rock Manor Games right now, so presumably they're not bothering with that. I don't know anything about the box either, but hopefully we can get our hands on a copy, maybe, if we try it.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. Set a Watch was a solid little card game. It's nice to see it go the distance and not just kind of, fade out.
Do the same thing over and over again. Yeah.
All right. Alex Mean, you also wrote this one on a very different kind of note about the new game from the Exploding Kittens people.
Yeah, talking about doing the same thing over and over again. Oh! Sorry. Couldn't resist. Yeah, so Exploding Kittens, the company behind Exploding Kittens, and various other games have announced a new game called Taco Cat, spelled backwards. Which they've assured the player that you don't have to spell Taco Cat backwards if you want. But it's a card game where you play cards themed around palindromes. So, for those who might not know, a palindrome is a phrase or word that is sounds the same whether you read it in its intended fashion or backwards as well. So, yeah, Taco Cat is also Taco Cat backwards. So as far as I know, you play cards of either the same value or higher than your opponent until you have to play your final card in your hand, and it has to be lower than your opponent's card. And then the Taco Cat will come to you because it likes that, apparently. And that's it. The game folds out. I will say, for its credit, the game box looks really nice. I like the way it looks, and I like the fact that, like Set a Watch, it folds out to form the box. Like, they're doing a lot of these portable games, which I think is a really good idea on their front, in terms of they're the kind of games that you would whack out while waiting for something, maybe at a convention or whatever. And that makes a lot of sense. As for the gameplay, it just doesn't really sound that exciting.
It's just that's how they get you. That's how they get you. The box is the gingerbread house, and inside,
like, ooh, look at the shiny box.
Like one of the PAX shows, they had a giant booth where you went to buy games, and people were standing around watching people buy games because it was a big thing. It was shaped like a cat, and you'd press a button, it would be like ching ching, and a thing would pop up being like, you're buying this and this. And it was just a human sat there just running the things up when they were pressed. And then the big joke was an arm would come out with your purchases and then be like, give me the money. They know what they're doing. They're very well presented. The art from the oatmeal is, great, and Exploding Kittens and stuff like that. I mean, I actually bought Exploding Kittens when it came out because of that art. It's just, it's something that I feel like, oh god, this is going to sound really gatekeeper, but people who play board games a lot, it's just it's one of those things where you sit there being like, oh, you're having a nice time, but you're doing it wrong because it's bad, actually. No one comes off well from talking about these games, because either you're like, oh, I love them, and people are going to think you're lacking in taste, or you're going to be basically doing what I'm doing now and saying that they're bad and people shouldn't like them, actually, and you just seem like an unpleasant person.
I think it's more of the case of, if you like these kind of games, then that's fine. You'll probably have a lot of fun with this. I mean, it only costs £12, so it's not a rip-off. And I'm sure a lot of people will have fun with it. It's just not the kind of party game or card game that I would play, because it's not that I dislike simple games. It's that I like games that are engaging, and the mechanics of this game just don't. It sounds like a lot of style over substance, which, it's fine. They present their games really well. I think they market themselves incredibly well. It's just, I would love that with, compelling gameplay as well. That would be a fantastic combination. I'm also not a huge fan of the whole, aesthetic of, slightly gross out, cuteness. It's not really my thing. I think the Taco Cat is fine, it looks cute, and I like the way the box looks, but the whole, gross out aspect of it doesn't really do much for me.
Yeah, barfing cats and all that.
Yeah, not a fan of that sort of thing.
I think you're right, Johnny, though, in that it shows how far you can get on, decent visuals, because... Realistically, the board game industry, often there are some fantastic gameplay designs and mechanics that are done dirty by boring themes and bad art. And it's kind of I think it's a hangover from a lot of the the hobby from a decade plus ago, where it was catering to like a much more niche audience, and it was things like Exploding Kittens that managed to bring, Exploding Kittens and Cards Against Humanity, which I would say is far worse than Exploding Kittens. But they show the power of kind of strong presentation, and so if you take that and apply it to better mechanical games, there's much more out there.
Yeah,
and I think we're seeing that. Yeah,
like Happy Salmon is a perfect example of that. Like Happy Salmon is incredibly simple and it looks great and it comes in a fantastic little bag. Same with Bananagrams. Like they're both really great simple games, and they are a perfect example of combining solid simple mechanics with like a really good looking like package. That's it. There you go.
Yeah, there's a lot more out there, but if Exploding Kittens gets somebody to move on from Cards Against Humanity, or gets them into like better, like if they go from Exploding Kittens to something like Skull, or even A Fake Artist Goes to New York, all the better for it. It's found its place. But I think it's the worry that people just get stuck in the Exploding Kittens verse and never. Yeah, but it will do what it will do, I suppose. All right, let's move on to this one, which I'm going to bring up quickly. The Monster Hunter World board game, Monster Hunter World the board game, to be specific, which we heard about last summer, I think, originally. Teased by Steamforged, who you may know from other such video game adaptations as Dark Souls, Resident Evil, Horizon Zero Dawn, other things. They've done a lot, but they've also done God Tier and Guild Ball and some original things, and Bard Song as well, which we saw recently. But we were able to break the news that it will be coming to Kickstarter in April, and Chase spoke with some of the folks involved in the design and development of it about what we can expect. You can find the full kind of interview over on the website. But the long short of it is that it's Monster Hunter. If you played the video games, it will probably be quite familiar in terms of what it's doing. You get together with a gang of friends, you go and smack a big monster on the head with a big bone sword, then you carve it up for bits, and then you make a bigger bone sword, then you go and beat up a bigger monster, and then you make a bigger bone sword, and so on. Some of the new things are that it will involve a narrative campaign with some branching decisions, which is, I'll say, an interesting choice, given that Monster Hunter, not generally known for its storytelling.
Well, Zora Magdaros is making an exodus. Why are the Elder Dragons doing that, Matt? We've got to find out for the good of the research fleet. You're a member of the 5th, for crying out loud. Can you tell I'm replaying Monster Hunter World at the minute?
I can't. I was going to say, I played like 150 hours of that game, and I remember none of that.
I'm going through it again at the minute with a friend. I love it. I think it's great. It's so joyful for something where you're just killing rare and beautiful creatures.
It's just like, oh, look at this incredible bird. Well, I guess I'll smack it on the head now.
Oh, good, I broke its back. We're probably going to get more scales from it. And I've got a little cat friend helping me do a murder.
I mean,
look at the cat. Don't look at the murdering.
It's a palico. It's also doing murder. As
a lover of cats, they are murderous creatures. So,
God, yes.
It fits perfectly. Also, great chefs, it turns out. So yeah, I'm into minds about this because I really like Monster Hunter. I think some of Steamforged's games have been really interesting and decent. Even the video game ones, which I think have been more of a mixed bag. I liked the Resident Evil 2 board game. Like Bard Song seems really interesting. Guild Ball was, it was very different, but it was cool.
Bard Song is really good, from what we've played anyway.
So hopefully that's kind of the direction they're now going in. But I also really didn't enjoy my time with Dark Souls, the board game.
Yeah,
though it was many years ago now. Apart from the boss decks, which are making a turn in this game, and it sounds like that's the focus they're going on, is they kind of know what was good about Dark Souls and they're bringing that to the fore here. So
because the trip to the bosses in the Dark Souls board game, it was just interminable, really.
So I'm intrigued, and like I say, the Kickstarter's coming in April, and it will be a heck of a Kickstarter. It's going to have a lot of miniatures. There will be the hunters in there. There will be some of the monsters. I don't think they've confirmed all of them. But the Rafflos, which is kind of the
Poster,
monster
yeah.
hunter, the poster
poster
dragon, whatever you want to call it.
Anjanath, Toby Kadachi, and what is it? It's not a Puke, is it?
Yeah, but that sounds about right. What's the one that's a literal T-Rex?
That's an Anjanath.
Okay, yeah, that's in there.
So you can see a miniature for that in the news story.
So I think they've said there'll be 4 miniatures in the
Great
box.
Jagras, there we go.
Great Jagras, that's the one, yeah. And Diablos, the sand kind of... Diablos is the sand, like, horned one? I don't know. It's been a while, I should play more Monster Hunter. But yes, it is coming in April, it will have all that stuff. It sounds like they are trying to do a decent job of adapting it, but I guess we'll find out more when that Kickstart hits and when we get to play it for ourselves. But yeah, if you're intrigued by Monster Hunter, expect it soon.
Okay.
Delicious.
All right, great. Let's move on to this next story. Just a quick one. Sarah Thompson, who you may remember from having designed the pretty fantastic Dungeons and Dragons combat wheelchair, which they put out for free as a free set of rules, and then it was turned into miniatures. They've now released free DLC for Cyberpunk Red, which is a cyber chair. So it is as it sounds. You know, you can have your Cyberpunk Red character use this cyber chair to move around. It's personalizable. That is not a word. You can personalize it and tailor it to your specific needs.
Yeah.
It's available for free on Artel Saurian's site. And that's kind of it. I mean, it's rules for a cyber chair in Cyberpunk Red, but it's just great to see more publishers, you know, including, and particularly for free, releasing it for free and just making it available rather than in a paid supplement or source book.
With absolutely badass art of a character heavily designed on Sarah themselves, sat in the chair. It's absolutely wonderful. And I think, like, because... So I played in a charity game of The Witcher RPG with Sarah and with Doug Cockle, the voice of Geralt of Rivia, and some other sort of notable people. But Sarah really started out doing like prosthetics for disabled witches, because like they're really passionate about the fact that Geralt of Rivia is a disabled protagonist, etc., etc. And I think it was that, and then their work with the combat wheelchair, that really made Artel Saurian sit up and say, yeah, we could be doing more. Because I think so often in RPGs, you know, in fantasy as much as sort of cyberpunk stuff with themes of transhumanism, players see disabilities as weaknesses that can be stamped out thanks to magic or technological advancement, and that's not really fair. Like, that is an attitude that is just rooted in ableism, and I think it's great that publishers are stepping up, even if, you know, like it's baby steps in some cases for now, but it's good to be having those conversations, just being more aware and putting cool stuff like this in.
Yeah, why wouldn't you want to sit in a chair with the crab legs?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the chair is incredible.
Champagne.
Yeah. So the character's name is Nyx Phosphate as well, which is both incredible and also extremely cyberpunk.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just rad across the board, really. But you can, like I say, you can find that on Artel Saurian's site. As worth saying, Sarah, as well, they release a lot of, I think, their own rules for free.
Yes, you can find them on Twitter at... hang on.
Mustang's Art?
Yeah.
Mustang's Art, not Mustang Art. Yeah, well worth a
check
follow.
it out.
Mm-hmm.
Do it.
Let's move on to this next one. Very quick one. We mentioned a couple of podcasts ago a Magic the Gathering card that at the time was up on eBay for an eye-watering sum. And it has now sold this autographed Black Lotus. Okay. It has sold and become the most expensive Magic the Gathering card of all time. To our knowledge. The winning bid was $511,000, or just over $511,000. So yeah, Black Lotus, for those folks that may not be fully aware, is a card from the original run of Magic the Gathering. Is normally held up to be the kind of most sought after card in Magic. It normally goes for not small sums, but smaller sums than that.
Yeah.
But typically it goes between kind of 30 grand and 200 grand, depending on the condition and whatnot. But yes, this one was signed by the designer and artist, whose name I'm just trying to find and can't find, Christopher Rush. So yeah, not the card itself, which is even kind of stranger, but the case that it is put in to protect it.
Matt, you don't want to ruin the card.
Well, the card itself is a perfect mint condition 10.
It's a perfect mint condition, Matt.
Yeah, it's a 10. It's a 10 out of 10.
It's a 10 out of 10
for condition, and then the person does signed the box, and that means it's worth more than $500,000.
Yeah, 'cause I really wish that one day I'd just be rifling under my bed or something, and I'd just come across this would never happen because I don't have any Magic the Gathering cards, but I would just come across a Magic the Gathering card and then be like, oh wow, I wonder how much this is, and then send it on an auction for like $500,000.
Yeah, I think it's what a lot of people hope for. I think Pokemon cards is the other one that a lot of people are like, oh, I have Pokemon cards in the loft.
They must be worth hundreds.
Yeah, and a lot of the time it is either printing errors or very specific runs of certain cards.
Yeah.
So, for instance, the Charizard that sells for a lot of money, that is a specific shadowless Charizard that has a printing error. It's not just your kind of bog standard Charizard.
It probably wouldn't help that the wasps have most likely gone to them. The ones in
the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. They're just
yeah.
they've given them all away at the bake sale. They've got to fix the church roof.
I mean, this would probably fix a few church roofs.
I dare say so.
But I mean, cynically, it's probably gone to a collector who in a few years will sell it for even more money.
Yeah.
Because that tends to be the way these things go. But because who's spending $500,000 on a card to crack it open and actually use it?
Well, exactly.
The thing it was designed for, rather than just accumulate wealth in the form of Magic the Gathering cards.
I mean, this happens in all sorts of hobbies and industries, doesn't it? Just people like rare stuff and feeling important for having it, I guess. It's not something I understand because those figures are absolutely astronomical to me. Yeah. But, also I live in London, so I'm happy to spend £4 on a pint of beer. So... Well, not happy to, but perfectly willing to.
If you put that beer in a case, though, Johnny, and waited 30 years, who knows what it might be worth?
Yeah, who knows what you'll sell it for?
Mint condition beer.
Mint condition pint of 5 points. Pale.
I had one of the promotional Coca-Colas from the London Olympics. I think it was you get one if someone wins a gold medal while you're walking around the space where the London Olympics was held.
Right.
I was like, okay, this will be worth money, maybe. It's like, I'm not going to drink this now, I'll just hold on to it and see. And forgot about it, probably forgot about it, and found it when I was visiting my mum's house a year ago, or a couple of years ago.
And
it turns out, worth nothing, Jack Scott. So, and by that point, it was flat. So the lesson to be learned from this is just enjoy things.
Yeah,
Don't
enjoy your life.
My mum once speculated on the pickle market. There was an enormous fire at the Branston Pickle Factory, and the word on the street was that they weren't going to be able to make Branston pickle for ages, so there was going to be a massive shortage. So my mum was like, right, and bought loads of Branston, and then price didn't go up that much. People don't need Branston pickle because other pickles are available also. So then we just had loads of pickle. We got through it.
That's not a bad thing to have, to be fair.
Yeah. That was really funny. I remember at the time thinking this is a strange thing to do. But
it's funny how often pickles come up on this podcast. It's like they've got their own section of lore now.
It's because they're excellent.
Yeah, pickles, gherkins, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Do it. Make a page on it.
Talking of a pickle, Tabletop Simulator, which we were speaking about earlier, recently launched an update which claimed to add support for 20 or increase the number of supported languages to 29. So all of the languages currently supported by Steam, the platform on which it is available. Unfortunately, they kind of took the, let's say, lazy route or whatever, minimal effort route, and used Google Translation or Google-powered machine learning to do the translation rather than actual paid translators. And so this caused both a lot of backlash on Twitter, understandably so, but also some kind of amusing errors, which is part of the reason that I've included this, in that it took, as with, translation software, misses the nuance of different languages and context. So, for instance, it started to translate the lead designer to be lead designer. And also it translated one instruction from Japanese into press Z to bread. I don't know the original context because it's a screenshot on Twitter from it. So I don't know what the original instruction is. It's just tied to one of the keyboard shortcuts in the menu. But it is press Z to bread. I guess undo, maybe?
That's fascinating because, bread would... In this context of the sentence, bread is acting as a verb. But believe you me when I say that wouldn't really work.
Well, I think because it's the keyboard shortcut, the word that was translated into bread is at the top of the column for the different keyboard shortcuts. So it would have been a word by itself originally. But to add to this, Berserk Games, which is the developer of Tabletop Simulator, then kind of said, hey, we're gonna allow the community to create their own translations and we're gonna feature the best ones.
Right.
Effectively just going, hey, you could do the work for us for free, but we'll feature it. So yes, it's not been a great rollout. I don't believe they've announced any kind of response to this backlash. I believe Chase reached out to them while writing this story to basically ask, hey, what are you doing?
Are you all right?
But yeah, it's been kind of a mess across the board. So yeah, just bad translations, kind of iffy suggestion of just benefiting from free labor on behalf of the people using the game.
Yeah.
Which all could have been avoided if they'd just got proper translators and paid them. Because I would take a stab here, I don't know the exact numbers, but I would assume Tabletop Simulator is doing okay. Particularly at the moment, it's often on sale. I believe it's pretty darn popular on Steam. I think they'd be okay to pay some translators.
Even if it takes a bit longer, it'd be better to do a good job.
Yeah, I dare say people would have been more appreciative of a delayed but comprehensive and actually useful translation function.
Yeah. So there we go. Finally, let me hop back to this thing. Yes, finally, a little fun one to end this news segment on. There is a new world record for Jenga.
Go on.
So this is from the Guinness Book of World Records. It was achieved by a 12-year-old, Aldine Maxwell, from British Columbia. And on November the 29th last year, Maxwell managed to stack 693 Jenga blocks on top of a single Jenga brick. So it's not a normal Jenga tower, which makes this even more impressive. It's almost 700 blocks on top of a single brick. So it's the equivalent of 13 Jenga sets. So it took him 13 Jenga sets and just over an hour, which is actually quite quick.
It's vertical. What?
Yeah,
it's a vertically standing brick. It's not even.
Yeah,
That's wild.
So there is a video of this, and it is.
What sorcery is this?
It's a lot of bricks on top of a single vertical Jenga brick. So it beat the previous record, which I think is cited here somewhere. I can't find it now.
485.
That's it. Thank you. Yeah. So
pathetic.
So more than 200 additional bricks. But yeah, it's just impressive. Yeah. I mean, I've never considered going the way of trying to beat the Jenga world record, but fair play.
Yeah.
If that's what you want to do.
If in many ways you could argue that this is the true spirit of the game, because Jenga is the imperative of the Swahili verb to build. It says build it. So
there you go.
Yeah.
And Lord,
This kid
did he?
Build.
Yeah.
I just hope that afterwards Maxwell played a game of Jenga with this enormous stack, just teetering, trying to knock one out.
Didn't he smash? He smashed a couple of Guinness World Record books into it, didn't he? As like a SMID. Wow.
I think he stacked them up next to it afterwards. I don't know if he knocked it down with Guinness World Record books. But the Guinness World Record report about it says that Maxwell has wanted to earn a Guinness World Record title since he was 6 years old and has been balancing and stacking objects for as long as he can remember. So
probably about 6 years then.
yeah.
You know.
But, good on him.
Yeah, no, sorry. I'm swinging wildly back and forth on this kid because I'm like, people work longer than 6 hours to earn a record, mate. Ignore me.
I think that this kid should pack that up in exactly the state it is, leave it for 20 years.
Yeah.
And sell it.
No, it will have gone flat. No one likes flat Jenga.
So, yeah, there we go. If you're looking to take on Maxwell's record, all you've got to do is stack 700 Jenga bricks on top of a single brick.
I mean,
take you what, an hour and a half?
94.
Well, it took him just over an hour, so presumably, hour and a half for more than that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah. Let's
So
get him.
Yeah, by the time this podcast rolls around again next week, expect us to smash that dice over just to spite a 12-year-old kid.
I'll do it, Matt. I'll do it.
We're not above it over here on Dicebreaker.
I really don't want my homework to be try and stack as many Jenga bricks on top of one another as possible.
Try and destroy a 12-year-old's lifelong dream. Okay, let's take some emails. If you've got an email for the podcast, you can reach us at podcast@dicebreaker.com. You can find us on Twitter @joindicebreaker. You can find us at dicebreaker.com or join us on YouTube over at youtube.com/dicebreaker. It'd be nice to hear from you. Let's read this one from Emily. Mian, would you like to read this one, please?
Oh, I'd love to. Emily says, "Hey folks, I was recently listening to episode 21 of the podcast, and Mian was discussing how she'd make a new and better game using Warhammer minis as part of a dexterity game." God, that was a while ago. My question challenge for you is to design a Franken game using various game pieces from other games that you own. How would it play? What elements would you take from the other games? Thanks, Emily.
So I figure the best way for us to approach this is we each pick one mechanic.
Okay.
Or one concept or component that we like, and then we try and smash them together in the space of, let's say, 5 minutes.
Okay.
We're all Frankenstein in this scenario, right?
Yeah. Okay, so it is components specifically. So pick a physical component that you like, and we'll quickly hash together. Get this whole game design lark is easy, isn't it? Yeah, just knock it out in 5.
Yeah, no problem.
Components I like. The little pouches from Sheriff of Nottingham. They're so atmospheric. Never has the snap of a plastic popper been so charged.
I really like the blocks in Junker. I like the fact that there's so many different shapes. I like the fact that there's so many different colours. I like the fact that they're basically solid wooden. It just feels really good. So throw them in there.
Okay, I'm gonna go with the tower from Flick 'em Up, Dead of Winter. That you drop zombies down, and it's like a tidal wave of zombies that come rushing down this tower and toward all your meeples kind of stood around.
Okay. How about it's almost like a tower defense game where you get enemies kind of falling down this tower and heading towards certain points, but you're using the cubes from Junkart, ostensibly all cooperatively, to build better defenses against these incoming enemies. However, this is a hidden role game, and there is one traitor who is actually secretly trying to build
Rubbish.
Either build rubbish that's ineffectual, or kind of like build it in such a way that they can actually take out a piece and funnel all the enemies in, and all of the defenses have fallen.
Just compromise the integrity.
Yeah, we can call it zombie wall bastards.
No. No, we'll call it. What was that zombie movie with Tom Cruise in it?
World War Z.
World War Z.
That was
we'll do
Brad
a
Pitt,
tie-in
wasn't it?
game with World War Z. That's relevant, right? That film came out recently. We'll do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Easy. We'll get the IP for that. It's probably worth like £1.
Okay, let's say they refuse the IP and we have to go back to the drawing board. Same components. What we got?
Okay, how about this? So you've got the pouches, and you, in a similar fashion, you divide them up, and one of them has some kind of target that someone needs to take out, but it's hidden within one of those pouches. So you're then trying to split your blocks and build 3 different, let's say, constructions to defend against each of those pouches. Almost like the little things you have in Space Invaders that get broken down bit by bit. And one of them is the correct one, but you only have so many blocks, so you have to choose how to divide up your blocks. So it's like, do you stack all your defenses in front of one in the hope that it convinces your opponent that that is where your target is, but potentially leave the real target undefended?
Ooh, I like that.
And then you throw a load of marbles down the thing, because that's fun.
Yeah, marble runs.
I'm adding marbles, yeah.
That's
Okay,
a bit cheeky.
Big marbles are furious, man, and Matt's idea has been nixed. We've been sued into the ground. We've got one chance to make this work. What's your game?
Oh no, you're asking me to do spontaneous game design? Oh, oh god, I'm really bad at these sort of things.
You're our only hope. Big marbles are going to come in and they're going to smash our knees with socks full of marbles.
I can hear them coming. They're rumbling.
You're
Please,
just
no.
adding pressure to me now. You're making the situation even worse. Oh, I'm really bad at this sort of thing. I don't know. You put someone's head at the other end of the tower. You just file blocks down it.
Oh god.
If they survive.
It's like
then they
Knuckles, but
Yeah.
but with wooden blocks.
In fairness, I think big marbles would probably go for that.
No, you use a drum cart. Use the drum cart pieces. You fire them down the tower.
Okay.
And then someone has to try and catch them in the pouch, or they'll get them in like the eye.
Oh, that's good.
That's
I
pretty
like
good.
that,
Yeah, there you go. Violent, but
the two
fun.
options are catch or eye.
Yeah, catch
Yep.
or eye. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, because yeah, okay. So if they hit the eye, then the person throwing them down gets points. But if they hit the pouch, then the person catching them gets points. There you go. And then you just really want to hope you don't get one of those arch ones, because imagine they would hurt a lot. Or like the cylindrical ones.
Perfect. I mean, we're gonna need a heck of a marketing team to get past the legal ramifications and health and safety concerns. But I think we've got a million seller here.
Just say it's not our fault. You know what you do with the pieces.
Apart from the rules we supply you with.
Yeah.
They're not
Asmodee, hit us
rules.
up.
They're not rules. They're suggestions.
No,
Therefore, you can
they're
get around
diktats.
the legal. Yeah, we're
They
not
are
telling you to do it.
obligations.
We're just saying you could do it. So
Oh, what
if
a-
you do it, then
Yeah.
it's your own problem.
What
frankly.
is this peer pressure? The game.
Yep.
Well,
You could throw a block in your friend's eye.
You could.
should.
Thank you. Well, yeah.
do it.
Thank you, Emily, for a great
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, thank
Hopefully, it doesn't prove to be our downfall.
Yeah, please don't.
All right, Johnny, would you like to read this one from Bumbariest, please?
Absolutely. Hello, Dicebreaker team. I bought the TTRPG book Dream Askew / Dream Apart because the, quote, belonging outside of belonging / no dice, no masters system sounds interesting. However, I have never gotten either game on the table. Dream Askew is about a queer community already on the margins of society during the collapse of civilization. Dream Apart is about a Jewish Städte in a fantastical Eastern European countryside that doesn't really want them there. Being neither LGBTQ nor Jewish, I don't know a whole lot about these communities. I worry that if I portray such a character from a place of ignorance, I may do something disrespectful like play a stereotype or perform cultural appropriation. Do you have any suggestions for respectfully role-playing a non-fictional community or culture that you aren't intimately familiar with? Bunburyist. That is a great question. And a delicate issue, because I think it is very important that queer communities and communities like the Jewish community are represented in games. I think that representation is wonderful. But engaging with those topics, especially if you don't belong to either community and don't know about them, can be nerve-wracking because, as Bamburia says, you don't want to be disrespectful. You don't want to be appropriative or fall into into sort of just portraying a stereotype. A similar thing was a similar question came up when I did a panel with Brandon Dixon, the creator of Swordsfall, when somebody said, look, I'm a white guy and this is Afro punk fantasy basically. But how do I explore this and how do I introduce tension to a party without just reintroducing colonial narratives? Because if I'm threatening an indigenous culture that is blossoming in this world, how am I not just trying to reintroduce these themes? They're thorny issues. I think simply the way the question was written shows that already Bamburis is doing, is thinking about it and being cautious. So, because I think being sensitive and, if you don't know much about these communities, educating yourself in a way that you can portray them with a degree of accuracy without being disrespectful is important. Also, just talking to people in those communities, get their opinions on that representation and whether they think it's tasteful or not, and ask them whether they'd like to be involved. I believe, Mian, when you played Zhongxi, there was a section on portraying Chinese American communities, right?
Yeah, so my response to this question would have been, I think a good role-playing game that wants its players to engage with, minority communities will put the effort in explaining, okay, this is kind of how we encourage you to approach it. Here's maybe some of the background that you might want to know about these communities. And if you're not part of this community, then here's how you can avoid, portraying stereotypes or being insensitive or disrespectful. So Zhongxi did a really good job of that in the sense that game you are playing Chinese American immigrants. You don't have the option to not, because the whole point of that game is, exploring those people's experiences, but also it's built into the whole theme of it. So with Zhongxi, and we were lucky enough to talk to Banana and Senfeng as well about what's the right way of doing this, and they literally pointed us to the game's rulebook, which says if you're not Chinese American, we encourage you to probably not use an accent. Also just try and approach these characters not just from their race or their culture, but also from the fact that they are human beings with exactly the same problems. Well, they have problems, they have personalities, they have dreams and motivations, and ultimately, when you think about it like that, it's very easy to just play a character. Maybe if you're worried about it, maybe avoid leaning to it too much, and maybe take some sort of elements from, if you want to do some education on the communities, or if the book provides you with some lore and ideas, but don't don't lean into it too much if you don't know a lot or you're not part of those communities, because in the end, that's probably a better way of approaching it. Again, I'm not an expert because I am neither Jewish, I am queer, but obviously LGBTQ is a huge umbrella. So if I was looking to portray a trans character in this role-playing game, I would have to think about the way I'm portraying that person, and talk to people from those communities. There's plenty of material out there.
I think that's one of the many benefits of indie role-playing games as well, is that because these creators are much more direct, and often they are kind of one person behind publishing, writing, sometimes even illustrating as well, they are generally much more open to communicating directly with people who play their games. So Dream Askew, like Avery Alder, I believe is quite active on Twitter. Like, obviously you don't want to, like, respect people's boundaries, respect their privacy, but I'm sure, if you were to get in touch and just say, hey, I'm thinking about this, do you have any advice? Like, those creators, they put their games out there for people to play them. And so as long as you're taking the right approach, I don't, like has been said already, speak to people from those communities, try and understand it, approach it all respectfully. Don't try too hard, because that runs the risk of like othering in the other way.
Yeah. But these communities are not like, they're not traits for your, or like personality types for your character. They're just elements of them. But also, like, playing these kind of role-playing games is a really excellent way of building empathy, I think, with different people who are different from you or different communities. Like, if you imagine the idea of, like, oh, I'm imagining, a character with these elements or as part of this community. I think don't be afraid of playing games like this, but do think about it and how to approach it in the right way.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you for the really interesting question and important question. I'll read this one from Callum. Real new to D&D, and so is the group I've managed to rustle together. We're going to have to do it via video chat for obvious reasons. Any tips to make it fairly seamless? Our DM has only hosted in-person games.
Step 1, recognize and permit yourself the knowledge that it's not going to be seamless. But that you can still have fun. I would say cameras on if you can, because just being able to see people and see their reactions makes it a lot easier. I don't know if you play with miniatures or not, but there are things out there that sort of help you move miniatures around. You could use TTS, you could use Roll20. But just, it's tricky. Just sort of have a chat with everyone and maybe just talk about what their expectations are and what their worries are about the game. One thing I find very useful, actually, is making sure everyone can hear the same music. So if everyone's got headphones on, there are ways to do it. There are sort of websites where you can plug in YouTube videos and it will play them, synchronized for everyone. Or if you're on Discord, there's a free plugin called GroovyBot, where you can invite GroovyBot to join your call. GroovyBot doesn't listen to you, but as in doesn't pick up what you're all saying. GroovyBot will follow your commands. But you can tell it to play an entire playlist. You can skip, you can shuffle. You can pause, so you can stop the music for dramatic effect. You can change its intensity, etc., etc. It's a really, really good tool, and just a light touch like that is enough to really bring people in. I very much do it when I'm running Games of Deadlands. So I run 2 separate campaigns at the minute, and when it's sort of time to start recapping and time to go, when we're done sort of just chatting about how everyone is, which we do for about 20 minutes, I'll start the music and be like, all right, let's get into it. And luckily I'm blessed with some excellent players, me included. And I think we never had to even discuss it, but everyone puts their phones away. No one's clicking around on other tabs. We're just really like leaning forward and leaning into the session, and it's dead nice. So yeah, that would be my advice.
Yeah, I think we've had this question quite a few times on this podcast, but it's always worth reiterating as well. It's like, particularly if you watch, well, us or Critical Role or whatever it may be, both in person and over video call, just never expect your session to necessarily be like that. Because in the case of Critical Role, they are literally professional actors. But even in our case, there's video editing, there's, we do it as a job regularly. It's a very different kind of experience.
Yeah, we're also playing to video. We make decisions that we wouldn't make just if it was a personal game.
Yeah, but there's, I would say, as well as setting the expectation like Johnny says, also just have kind of session 0, even if you're halfway through a campaign, do like a quick side story, if nothing else, just to work out technical hiccups, because there might be someone that's accidentally muted themselves, or someone doesn't know how a virtual dice, or where to find a virtual dice roller, or how to best handle their character sheet. So I think trying to instantly continue a campaign you may have been running in person virtually can be very difficult, because you might decide that actually you were using miniatures before, but you don't feel like using Tabletop Simulator, or not everyone has access to that technology. So it might be better to just do something that's more kind of theatre of the mind for however long it lasts. So I think just having a session or two where you can both set those expectations but also work them out to some degree, because you might go in thinking something will work and it almost certainly won't. That's the law of technology, is something will go wrong, someone will drop out, something will break. So just allow yourself that space. Don't put too much pressure on yourself, or in this case your DM, to get things exactly to the level they were or the level you'd like them to be. It will take time again. It will be like starting a new group in some respects, or starting a new RPG for the first time, because you'll be learning a different kind of process. So just be easy on yourselves more than anything. You're there to enjoy it. So anything that you're not enjoying, whether it's fiddling around with technology or whatever it may be, just maybe consider dropping it or changing it until everyone's happy.
Less combat. Because like D&D combat, especially if it drags on forever, people get bored. I do anyway. So then there's more temptation with them to go off and look at their phone or click around on a different tab or something. So maybe if you usually have lots of combat in your games, maybe siphon that out a bit. Or I don't know if it looks like you're not the DM, Callum, so maybe suggest that to your DM. Just say, hey, maybe a bit less combat, because then people might be less tempted to kind of just float off. Because it's a lot easier to do that when you're doing over video. It's very impolite to do that in person, but when you do it in video, it's a bit more tempting. There you go.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for all your questions. That is, for now, all the time we have on this week's episode of the Dicebreaker podcast. But before we leave you, Johnny Chiodini, head of video, what's coming up on youtube.com/Dicebreaker over the next week or so?
Well, you've never played Rolls On. I believe the next episode should be Patchwork, which I've never played. But you can watch our episodes, I know, on King Domino and Welcome To. We are rolling on with Age of Sigmar Soulbound. What else have we got going on? We've got a lovely painting stream coming up next week. All that good stuff that you can find on youtube.com/Dicebreaker.
Fantastic. And over on Dicebreaker.com, as well as, obviously, daily news, we have had, like I mentioned earlier, Chase spoke to the folks behind Monster Hunter World, the board game, about that, so you can catch that on the website right now. We have a review of June Imperium that's gone up today, so a couple of days now if you're listening to the podcast, which sounds interesting, kind of a deck builder based on, obviously, Dune, which sounds sort of like a mixed bag, but not bad, but just kind of, yeah. We will have a piece from Reed Conley on the benefits of logging your gameplays, which is something I've never done, but I've always been intrigued by. And it sounds like Reed went for a similar kind of situation where he kind of started looking at it and exploring it to find out why people do it, and then ended up discovering quite a lot about kind of the games he's playing and what he actually enjoys versus what he just happens to own and holds onto. And coming up, just in time for Valentine's, one Alex Meehan has updated our list of the best board games for two people or for couples.
Yeah, as the designated Dice member expert on all things love and romance.
Absolutely.
I've updated the couples list, so you can find the perfect game to play with your partner, or maybe with yourself.
Yeah, love yourself. That's
And if you're polyamorous, then there are also lists on just games that are good for more than two people.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those games can also be adapted for more people. But also there's like loads and loads of lists on there. So if you're after something in particular, then you'll be able to find it. I guarantee it.
But for now, that is this week's Dicebreaker podcast. Thank you for being here, Johnny Chiodini.
You are very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us, Alex Meehan.
I love it. It's great.
So sincere all the time. I've been Matt Jarvis. Thank you very much for listening. We will return next Friday with another episode. But until then, look after yourselves. Look after yourselves. Stay safe out there. And have a lovely day.
Goodbye.
Bye.